My name is Rana Abdulhamid, and I'm the founder and president of the Women's Initiative for Self-Empowerment, WISE. WISE was started about 5 years ago, and my journey with WISE started with an experience that I had as a young Muslim woman growing up in Queens, New York, in a post-9/11 New York City. At that time, I was volunteering at a domestic violence organization that was catered just for Muslim women. And through this experience, I had been exposed to many situations and many stories and narratives of Muslim women who had been in ridiculous and horrific situations of violence. At the same time, one day, as I was on my way to this internship, I had a pretty terrible experience in that a man tried to take off my hijab. And the one thing that I remember so clearly from that day is the hatred in that man's eyes as he aggressively tried to take off something that was so important to me and something that had become a part of me. And as a young girl, I was 16 at that time, I didn't really understand why he was doing this, but I knew that I needed a space where I could go and speak about my experience. I wanted to find and learn about the experiences of other young Muslim women. And so what this inspired me to do was to try to create this space that I felt wasn't existent already in my community. And so after a couple of months of hard work, trying to teach myself how to create a program, trying to speak to a lot of different members of my community, leaders in the community, I started this program in the basement of a community center in Brooklyn, actually in New York. And we started off with about 12 young women who trusted me somehow, for some reason, to teach them self-defense and also try to facilitate conversations around identity, around what it means to be a Muslim woman, what it means to be a Muslim woman in the United States, what it means to be a Muslim woman in our society today. And at the end of that summer, I thought I had one of the most incredible experiences of my life, and it was so rewarding, but I thought, this was an experience and it would be over. But I remember receiving a phone call late August and having one of the girls I was working with on the other line crying. And I was really confused and puzzled by what was happening, and she was heaving really hard, and she explained to me that she had just gotten off a bus, and while she was on that bus, the bus driver had told her to go back to where she came from. And as another young woman, she was really confused because this is where she came from. She was also born in the United States. The only thing that she knew had been the United States. And she felt very confident in her capacity to respond to this bus driver because she had been through this program. And we had rehearsed prompts and rehearsed ways to defend ourselves in situations like this. So she remembered what he was wearing. She remembered she took down the license plate of the bus. She took down important details and reported the incident, which is very important because oftentimes these hate crimes go unreported. And from that moment, this young woman and I decided that this couldn't be the last summer of the program, that this summer was not about me anymore. It wasn't about my story, but it was about the stories of the young women that I was working with now, the stories of the young women in the community, the stories of Muslim women in New York City, in the West, and beyond that. And that's how it kind of propelled itself from there. So in these past 5 years, we've had incredible growth. Our curriculum has not only been focused on the empowerment of Muslim women through self-defense and leadership, but we've also looked at economic empowerment and professional empowerment because our understanding of female empowerment has changed. For us, female empowerment isn't just about providing women with equal rights on policy or like on paper through legal systems or empowering women by providing them with education in schools, but it's about giving women the skills that they need and the spaces that they need to feel empowered and giving them the tools they need to empower those around them and to constantly be independent no matter what situation that they're in and to know that they can navigate any situation with confidence. So whether that means you're walking down the streets of New York City and wearing the hijab and feeling afraid because you may be targeted for that, or whether that means entering a professional space as a woman and being harassed because of your gender. So we try to really focus on that form of empowerment, and so far we've actually had the opportunity to work with women and expand our programs, just not anymore just from being in Brooklyn, but now we work in Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. We also have chapters in Washington, D.C. and Madrid, Spain. So constantly looking for more opportunities to grow And oftentimes people will ask us, and like oftentimes one of the problems that we face is like us having to deal with the stereotype of Muslim women being oppressed, right? So what you see on the news today and what you hear oftentimes is that Muslim women are oppressed. And here we are, a program that's trying to combat stereotypes and trying to empower women, kind of possibly feeding into this stereotype. So people will often ask us, do you think Muslim women are oppressed? And my answer oftentimes is, there are women who happen to be Muslim who are in fact oppressed. It is the reality that Muslim women in Saudi Arabia don't have the right to drive. It's a reality that there are honor killings throughout the Middle East. It's a reality that Muslim women are faced with female genital cutting. Is it because of their faith that they are faced with this? Not necessarily. It's because of political and economic systems that inhibit them from feeling empowered and like having roles in their society. Because we have to remember that the story of Islam came down as a message of empowerment for marginalized groups. And during the time when Islam came down, one of the marginalized groups were women, right? And one of the highly cited sources of and examples of and role models of an empowered woman is Khadija radiallahu anha, who was the wife of the Prophet, who was a businesswoman, who was able to travel around on a caravan on her own, on a camel in the deserts of Arabia, and was economically empowered, was 20 years older than the Prophet, peace be upon him, but still had the confidence and ability to go ask for his hand in marriage. And I think that's a beautiful example of what the Islamic legacy is, that we have to continue to strive towards greater equality between men and women. And it's hard sometimes to navigate these spaces of feminism because people will look at a Muslim woman and see her hijab and see that as a marker of oppression, see that as a marker of backwardness, see that as a marker of not being empowered, of the opposite of empowerment. However, I think that there is great opportunity for creating alliances between Western feminism and Eastern feminism or Islamic feminism, because the ideas are really equal. It's about providing women with agency over their lives. Whether a woman wants to wear the hijab or the burqa or the niqab or not at all, she should have the opportunity to do that. And I think that's really what feminism tries to stand for. However, where the clash does begin is when there is misunderstanding, where Western feminists feel the need to empower Muslim women. And that's oftentimes very neo-colonialist in that it sees people in other parts of the world, in developing parts of the world, as people who are in need, who can't really create their own futures and empower themselves and empower their own communities. However, we do see right now in the Middle East waves of feminism unfolding. We see, for example, in Saudi Arabia, women claiming their own rights and going out and driving despite all of the fear and like the legal system that stands against them. We see women creating schools and women leading movements and educating their kids and doing all these things in parts of the world where women are seen to have lesser rights. And that's exactly what WISE tries to do. It creates this space for self-empowerment. It doesn't try to go out there and empower another group of people, but it recognizes that Muslim women have their own ability to empower themselves. All they need is the tools to be able to do so. And they may be in circumstances where society tells them that they shouldn't dress a certain way or they shouldn't believe in certain things, but with the right skills and opportunities and right training and community and friends and support, we're able to go beyond that and change that. So if I could give a piece of advice to Muslim women around the world today, one, that would be such a great honor because there are so many incredible Muslim women out there, and I think people need to go out there and find them. But two, what I would say is that we just have to respect and recognize and value the movements that are unfolding and that are taking place around the world because they're happening silently. So, for example, WISE is a silent movement. We've worked with hundreds and hundreds of Muslim women who now know how to defend themselves. So physically, mentally, emotionally, women who now have the capacity to build businesses, build organizations, who understand what professional development means, who understand what leadership means. And surely and slowly they will be taking on leadership positions. And this is a movement that isn't necessarily in the headlines every day, but it's something that's happening. And I think these are the most powerful movements, the movements that are about groups of people working together to create positive social change on a grassroots level, on a local level, by creating support systems through challenges that they face. So that's the advice that I would give. I would ask people to go out and search for these things, become a part of these things, support these things, and create your own organization, create your own support network, and empower people around you. Thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, I encourage anyone to reach out to me. And I'd love to talk about starting a program in Malaysia if that's possible as well. Have a wonderful day.